Picture a child sitting in a pew, legs dangling, eyes wide with wonder. Around them, stained glass windows cast halos of color, and the air is thick with incense, tradition, and solemnity. A voice, gentle but firm, tells stories of a divine being who crafted the stars, watches over every action, rewards faith, and punishes doubt. These stories don't feel optional. They arrive wrapped in reverence and spoken with the authority of parents, priests, and generations past. Before the child has even developed the mental tools to question, to analyze, to doubt, belief has already taken root. This is how belief in God often begins, not as a rational decision reached through evidence or inquiry, but as an inheritance. A tradition dressed up as truth. A system absorbed during the most impressionable years of life, when obedience is rewarded and questioning is quietly or loudly discouraged. The child doesn't choose belief, it's chosen for them. As we grow, we rarely revisit this foundation. The faith we adopt is usually the one we were given, not because we've compared every worldview, read every sacred text, or explored the full spectrum of philosophical thought, but because questioning feels like betrayal. Community, culture, and family expectations form an unspoken wall around belief. Traditions are repeated so often, with such conviction, that they start to feel like facts. But repetition isn't evidence, and feelings aren't facts. The endurance of belief in God across millennia is not proof of its truth. It's a testament to the power of culture. Religion survives not on evidence, but on reinforcement. It's embedded in ceremonies, rituals, architecture, holidays, and social norms. Authority figures, political, religious, and parental, prop it up, not always out of malice, but often out of habit. And beneath it all, there is fear. Fear of death, fear of meaninglessness, fear of punishment, fear that without belief, life has no compass. But what happens when we pause to look deeper? What if we strip away the emotional comfort, the fear-based motivation, the inherited identity? We see that this belief, so central to so many lives, is built more on emotion than demonstration. It's worth remembering. Throughout human history, thousands of gods have been worshipped with total conviction. Zeus once reigned over Olympus. Ra ruled the sun. Odin guided warriors. Quetzalcoatl was revered as divine. Their believers didn't see myths. They saw truth. And yet, each of those gods eventually faded into legend. Why should today's gods be different? When belief is no longer examined, it becomes fossilized. Sacred, unquestionable, untouchable. But truth doesn't fear questions. And if a belief can't survive scrutiny, it deserves none of our loyalty. The journey beyond faith is not a descent into despair. It's a climb toward clarity. It's not about arrogance, it's about honesty. It's about asking the questions we were once told not to ask, and finding the courage to seek answers even when they lead us beyond the familiar. At the heart of science and logic lies a fundamental principle. The burden of proof rests with the person making the claim. If someone insists there's an invisible dragon in their garage, we don't scramble to disprove it. They must provide evidence for its existence. This standard is intuitive in everyday life, yet when it comes to God, it's curiously reversed. Believers are told they must accept God's existence unless they can disprove a being defined as beyond detection, being who by design eludes empirical scrutiny. This reversal is not a strength but a sleight of hand, shifting the responsibility onto skeptics to negate an untestable assertion. Consider the implications. If we applied this logic elsewhere, we'd be obligated to believe in fairies, ghosts, or extraterrestrial overlords unless we could prove they don't exist. The absurdity is clear, yet the concept of God enjoys a cultural exemption shielded by centuries of reverence and emotional attachment. This exemption doesn't withstand scrutiny. If a claim cannot be tested, observed, or falsified, it remains a hypothesis, not a fact. The absence of evidence for God doesn't prove non-existence, but it places the belief in the realm of speculation, not certainty. Turn your gaze to the natural world, and what do you see? Complexity, yes, but also randomness and indifference. Hurricanes tear through coastal towns, sparing neither churches nor schools. Diseases like cancer or malaria strike believers and atheists alike, unmoved by prayers or piety. Animals, from wolves to ants, operate without commandments, driven by instinct and survival, not divine decrees. The universe behaves the same whether we pray, fast, or ignore it altogether. The laws of physics, gravity, thermodynamics, quantum mechanics are consistent and unrelenting. They don't bend for faith, reward morality, or punish evil. They operate with a brutal impartiality, indifferent to human hopes or fears. Some argue that the universe's complexity suggests a purposeful design, a fine-tuning that implies a creator. They point to constants like the gravitational force or the speed of light, claiming their precision is too perfect to be accidental. But this argument falters under closer inspection. The universe is vast, 13.8 billion years old, spanning billions of galaxies with countless stars and planets. Yet over 99.99999% of it is uninhabitable. A cosmic wasteland of black holes, radiation, and lifeless rocks. Earth, a tiny speck in this expanse, is the only known haven for life. And even here, life is fragile, constantly threatened by asteroids, volcanoes, and our own environmental missteps. If the universe was designed with humans in mind, it's an astonishingly inefficient design, like building a continent-sized mansion for a single ant. The fine-tuning argument also ignores a critical point. We exist because the universe's conditions allow it, not because they were tailored for us. If the constants were different, we wouldn't be here to ponder them. This is the anthropic principle, a logical tautology, not evidence of design. Imagine a puddle marveling at how perfectly its hole fits its shape, unaware that it simply adapted to the space it occupies. The universe's vast emptiness, its hostility to life, and its indifference to our existence point not to intelligent planning, but to random chance, filtered through the slow, relentless process of natural selection. If the universe fails to suggest divine design, what about the human body, often hailed as the pinnacle of creation? At first glance, our bodies seem remarkable, capable of thought, creativity, and resilience. Yet a closer look reveals a catalogue of flaws that undermine claims of intelligent design. The human eye, for instance, has a blind spot where the optic nerve exits the retina, a quirk absent in cephalopods like octopuses, whose eyes evolved independently. Our spines, adapted from four-legged ancestors, are poorly suited for upright walking, leading to chronic back pain for millions. Our throats, sharing a passageway for air and food, make choking a persistent risk, a design flaw no engineer would endorse. These imperfections are not the hallmarks of a perfect creator, but the telltale signs of evolution, a process driven by trial and error, not divine precision. Vestigial structures like the appendix, which serves little purpose and can become lethally inflamed, further betray our evolutionary origins. Wisdom teeth, often misaligned and requiring surgical removal, are remnants of a time when our ancestors' jaws accommodated more teeth for a different diet. Even our DNA carries junk sequences, non-coding regions that accumulate over millions of years, a genetic scrapbook of our evolutionary past. These are not the marks of a master craftsman, but the inevitable compromises of a blind, incremental process. For many, religious texts like the Bible, Quran, or Vedas serve as evidence for God's existence. Yet texts cannot validate their own claims. A book asserting that God exists holds no more weight than one claiming unicorns roam the clouds unless corroborated by independent evidence. Religious scriptures, when examined critically, reveal contradictions, historical inaccuracies, and moral stances that clash with modern ethics. The Bible, for example, endorses slavery in passages like Leviticus 25:44-46, and contains conflicting accounts of events such as the differing genealogies of Jesus in Matthew and Luke. The Quran's scientific claims, like the sun setting in a muddy spring, Surah 18:86, reflect the cosmological understanding of 7th century Arabia, not divine omniscience. If these texts were discovered in a non-religious context, say buried in an ancient cave, scholars would classify them as myths, cultural artifacts reflecting the beliefs and biases of their authors. Their authority stems not from inherent truth, but from centuries of veneration and institutional power. Consider the Epic of Gilgamesh or the Norse sagas. Once revered as sacred, they're now studied as literature, not divine revelation. Why should contemporary religious texts be exempt from similar scrutiny? Their endurance owes more to cultural inertia than to empirical validity. A common defense of God is the moral argument. Without a divine lawgiver, there can be no basis for ethics. Yet morality thrives in secular societies, often outperforming religious ones in measurable ways. Countries like Denmark, Sweden, and New Zealand, with high rates of atheism, boast lower crime rates, better education, and robust healthcare systems compared to more religious nations. Studies, such as those by sociologist Phil Zuckerman, show that secular individuals are just as likely to act ethically, driven by empathy, cooperation, and a desire for social well-being, not fear of divine punishment. Morality is not a divine gift, but a human construct, evolving as societies learn what fosters harmony and what causes harm. Ancient laws, like those in Deuteronomy prescribing death for working on the Sabbath, reflect the priorities of Bronze Age tribes, not universal truths. Modern ethics, shaped by reason and experience, reject such punishments, embracing principles like human rights and equality. Empathy, rooted in our biology as social animals, drives us to care for others, as seen in behaviors across species, from dolphins rescuing swimmers to primates sharing food. Morality grows as we refine our understanding of justice, not as we adhere to static commandments. Many cling to God as the source of life's meaning, finding comfort in the idea of a divine plan. But comfort is not a measure of truth. A child may feel safer imagining a superhero under the bed, but that doesn't make it real. Meaning is not an external gift bestowed by a deity. It's a human creation, forged through relationships, curiosity, creativity, and contribution. Artists find purpose in their work, scientists in discovery, parents in nurturing their children. Life is meaningful because we make it so, not because a cosmic arbiter decrees it. The absence of God doesn't drain life of purpose. It amplifies our responsibility to create it. Consider the words of philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. Man is condemned to be free. Without a divine script, we are free to write our own stories, to define what matters. This freedom can be daunting, but it's also exhilarating, empowering us to shape a world that reflects our highest aspirations. If a God exists, why does suffering persist? Natural disasters don't discriminate. Earthquakes topple cathedrals, tsunamis sweep away villages, and famines claim the lives of praying children with the same indifference as those who never believed. Diseases like leukemia strike the devout and the skeptic alike. If God is all-powerful and all-loving, why does such suffering endure? Theologians invoke mysterious plans, but a plan that demands the agony of innocence is neither moral nor comprehensible. It's a post hoc justification, not an explanation. If God is indifferent or powerless, as the evidence of suffering suggests, then worship seems misplaced. A deity who allows millions to perish in floods or pandemics while intervening in trivial matters, like answering a prayer for a parking spot, lacks consistency or compassion. The problem of evil, as philosophers call it, remains a formidable challenge to theistic belief, unresolved by appeals to free will or divine mystery. The existence of thousands of religions across history underscores the malleability of the God concept. In ancient Mesopotamia, Marduk demanded blood sacrifices. In Buddhism, the divine is a formless enlightenment. In Christianity, God is a jealous sovereign. In Hinduism, a pantheon of deities governs existence. These contradictions, each faith claiming exclusive truth, reveal more about human psychology than divine reality. People believe what they're taught, what soothes their fears, or what aligns with their cultural norms. A child raised in ancient Greece would worship Zeus with the same fervor as a modern Christian worships Jesus. This relativity undermines claims of universal truth. Gods often mirror their creators. They have human traits: anger, jealousy, love, vengeance, reflecting the societies that birthed them. Religious texts brim with human concerns, property disputes, dietary restrictions, sexual taboos. These are not cosmic imperatives, but societal controls cloaked in sacred language. If God were truly beyond comprehension, as theologians claim, why do scriptures read like the edicts of ancient kings, not the musings of a galaxy-crafting intelligence? People often turn to God in crisis, seeking answers in pain or comfort in grief. This emotional need is powerful but not proof of existence. A weary traveler in the desert may hallucinate an oasis, but the mirage doesn't quench thirst. The human brain excels at finding patterns, even where none exist, a trait that helped our ancestors survive, but also fuels superstition. We see faces in clouds, omens in stars, and divine intent in random events. Faith often serves as self-soothing, a balm for existential fears, but emotional utility doesn't equate to truth. The argument that God must exist because billions believe is equally flawed. Truth isn't a popularity contest. For centuries, millions believed the earth was flat, yet evidence proved otherwise. Belief in God often stems from social pressure, fear of death, or the dread of meaninglessness. Heaven promises escape from mortality. Divine plans offer order amidst chaos. These are human desires, not evidence of reality. Science doesn't rely on faith, it demands evidence. Every supernatural claim tested under controlled conditions, prayer's effect on healing, miracles, psychic phenomena, has failed to outperform chance. Studies, like those published in the American Journal of Public Health, show prayer has no measurable impact on recovery rates. Blessings don't stop bullets. Holy water doesn't cure infections. These are not opinions, but observable outcomes, consistent across rigorous experiments. If God existed, why the need for concealment? We don't require faith to trust gravity or electricity. Their effects are evident. Faith is demanded only when evidence is absent. The need for belief, rather than knowledge, suggests absence, not presence. Historically, gods filled gaps in human understanding, explaining lightning, plagues, or the stars. As science unraveled these mysteries, the god of the gaps retreated. Today, cosmology explains the universe's origins, biology traces life's evolution, and neuroscience unravels the mind. The gaps where gods once dwelt are shrinking, not because we're closing our minds, but because we're opening our eyes. What remains when gods fade is not despair, but responsibility. Without divine oversight, we become the architects of our world. This is not a burden, but a liberation. It means we must address suffering, not pray it away. We must build ethical societies, not wait for heavenly mandates. It's easier to believe, Someone else is in control, but it's empowering to know we are. Secular humanism offers a path forward rooted in reason, empathy, and action. Organizations like Doctors Without Borders save lives without invoking deities. Scientists develop vaccines through evidence, not miracles. Communities rebuild after disasters through cooperation, not divine intervention. These efforts show that humanity can thrive without gods, driven by a shared commitment to flourishing. A world without divine oversight makes life more precious, not less. Each moment gains urgency, each connection deepens in value. Without an afterlife, we cherish the now, loving fiercely, creating boldly, questioning fearlessly. The absence of a cosmic plan doesn't render life meaningless, it makes meaning our responsibility. We find purpose in art, science, relationships, and the pursuit of justice, not in ancient texts or unseen realms. The courage to face reality as it transforms our perspective. Natural disasters, once seen as divine wrath, become challenges to mitigate through engineering and preparedness. Suffering, once a test of faith, becomes a call to action. Developing medicines, feeding the hungry, sheltering the displaced. By embracing our role as stewards of our world, we reclaim agency, crafting a legacy not for gods, but for future generations. Throughout history, the idea of God has undeniably shaped civilizations, inspired art, and provided comfort to billions. But where does the enduring power of this belief truly come from? Largely, it stems from human emotion. Would you agree with that? What did you think about today's video? Feel free to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Thank you for watching. If this video opened your mind or helped you see reality in a new light, don't forget to like and subscribe to Top Hidden Knowledge, so you never miss our next deep dive into mystery, perception, and the hidden workings of our universe. And if you have time, explore more videos on our channel. We're just getting started. Until next time, stay curious, stay aware, and never stop questioning the world around you.